Today on Clutch Sports Media, it's a bitter rivalry between two schools separated by a 14-minute, 7-mile drive with just a few turns. But today, these two squads are separated by 0 games in the Mid-Illini Conference standings. It's the 7-3 Washington Panthers hosting the 7-3 Metamora Redbirds in Mid-Illini girls basketball on ClutchSportsIL.com. Good afternoon, everybody, and from Torrey Gym, alongside Joey Wright, I am Larry Larson. And Joey, Washington and Metamora games are always so much fun to watch. I am so excited for this one.
Oh, man, you can talk about the records, you can talk about the history of this matchup, but Larry, frankly, nothing matters. It doesn't matter who's on the floor. It doesn't matter who's in the stands. If anyone's in the stands, it doesn't matter. Washington wants to beat Metamora. Metamora wants to beat Washington. It's always such a hotly contested game. I mean, heck, when these two teams get together on the gridiron, I mean, you could have 8,000 people showing up to watch. It is one of the best matchups in the state. And we're going to see a good matchup on the floor today. Washington a little short-handed, and Metamora, they've hit their stride here last couple of days. Saw them against Pekin the other day. They looked very good in that one. Washington looked good against Canton. We're going to have a good matchup. It's going to be close. It's going to be a down-to-the-wire sort of game. Glad that our viewers have chosen to spend their Saturday afternoon with us.
Of course, we thank you for joining us on this beautiful Saturday afternoon. It's a beautiful day outside, and it should be a great basketball game inside. As we mentioned in the top of the show, both these teams tied at the in the Mid-Illini Conference at 7-3 in third place behind Morton and first place state-ranked Dunlap. So a lot is on the line here, Joe. You mentioned that Metamora is hitting its stride lately. Washington coming off a sweep of Canton, while Metamora is coming off a sweep of Pekin. So both these teams playing really great basketball despite Washington missing one of its best players in Claire McDougall.
Yeah, Claire McDougall out today, and that's a big miss for Washington. Sophomore, she's very talented. She can do a lot. But players like Georgia Duncan and company, they are going to step up for Claire McDougall. And Washington was expected to beat Canton, I think. A lot of people would have looked at those and penciled them in as wins for Washington. Canton did some good things on Thursday night, but Washington just had a little more left in the tank. But Pekin coming off a sweep of a pretty good Pekin team. That's a Pekin team that handed Morton its first Mid-Illini Conference loss in 64 games. They've not been lights out since then, but to get over that hump against a Morton team that is right up there at the top of the Mid-Illini says something about Pekin. So Metamora coming in off a good stretch. Washington coming in off a couple of wins as well. Two hot hands, and I'm excited to see how it plays out.
Joey, let's take a look at one of our key matchups today. Of course, not the teams, but the players themselves. It's Georgia Duncan and Katie Ramage.
Yeah, Katie Ramage for Metamora, we'll start with her, comes in averaging just about 13.5 points per game, as you see there. Fast break threat. Katie Ramage can do a lot in the fast break, strong in the low post, and actually Katie Ramage, that scoring figure, a little bit off. That's Kayla Pasha by mistake. Kayla Pasha is going to be another key player for Metamora. But Ramage, if they can get her in the fast break, she can score. She'll also go to work in the low post. She's become a little bit more of a post player of late. And then Georgia Duncan for Washington, 14 points versus Canton. As a sophomore last year, she was second team All-PJ star, a dynamic scorer. She can score from anywhere. Talking before the game, Larry, we think Washington needs to shoot the three ball a little better today to have a chance against Metamora without Claire McDougall, so we'll see if Georgia Duncan and company can step up there. But they've got players, Leah Jones, Allie Scrivener, that can step up there as well. But that's our matchup. National Anthem's coming up, and I'll reiterate, really excited to watch this one today.
Thanks for sticking with us despite the schedule running a little bit long. The sophomore game ran quite a bit late. A big-time victory for the sophomore team for Metamora. We'll step aside briefly for our nation's national anthem, and we'll be right back with the starting lineups and game action on ClutchSportsIL.com. Welcome back inside Torrey Gymnasium in Washington. Clutch Sports Media getting you set for a great rivalry matchup between Washington and the Metamora Redbirds. Both teams entering this one tied for third place in the Mid-Illini Conference standings. Let's get you your starting lineups. First for the host Washington Panthers. It'll start with Leah Jones, a 5'9" junior guard. Allie Scrivener, number 5, a 5'7" senior guard, gets the starting nod as she has in nearly every game this season, the only senior on the Washington roster. Georgia Duncan, the star player for the Panthers. She scored 14 points last time out against Canton on Thursday. The 6-foot junior guard forward will get the ball a lot today. Lucy Wilson, the 5'3" junior guard, gets the starting nod in the backcourt as well. And Carly Vaughn, number 23, the 5'7" sophomore guard, rounds it out for Kim Barth's squad. As for Metamora, it's going to be number 11, Grace Tyra, number 12, Katie Lalamandir, number 20, Kayla Pasha, number 23, Katie Ramage, and number 34, Alana Terry, the Lewis commit.
Yeah, Alana Terry, one of the better players to walk the halls of Metamora Township High School in the last decade or so. She'll be playing ball at Lewis next year. A lot of potential Division I talent on this Metamora roster, and frankly on the Washington roster as well. Claire McDougall and Georgia Duncan, bright futures ahead of them. And when I look at Metamora, of course, Katie Lalamandir was the hero against Dunlap, that 3 overtime game we saw a couple of weeks ago. Dunlap ultimately got the win, but Lalamandir was clutch late. Katie Ramage, we mentioned her at the top of the show. Second on the team in scoring, it is Kayla Pasha, who leads the team in scoring with that 13.5 points per game mark. She'll be big. Pasha's got a good mid-range game. She can score in the low post as well and fire from the mid-range as well. She will have, my prediction, Larry, is she'll get to about the 12, 13, 14 point mark, but it'll be kind of quiet. You're not going to focus on Pasha a lot. It'll be, you'll look at the scoreboard third, fourth quarter, and you'll say, oh, yeah, she's having a nice game.
It's sneaky with this Metamora squad, Joey, because they've just got so many players who can score. It's so balanced. I mean, one example, last time we saw Metamora, was Leah Yanko. She averages 1.9 points per game, and she was in double figures that game.
Yeah, any given night, right? Any given afternoon, anyone can step up and put those points on the board. And, of course, Metamora will start with the ball. Let's see who they go to.
It will start with Katie Lalamandir. She swings it to the right wing to Grace Tyra. Reverse to the other side, it's Ramage. She takes the mid-range and connects. A hot start for the Redbirds.
There's Katie Ramage making us look good, right? Key player for Metamora. Off to the hot start.
Metamora comes out in the full court press. They're going to try to make Washington play rushed. Scrivener gets out of the trap, but Jones is in the trap. Great ball movement. Vaughn was open underneath the bucket, and they kick it out. Vaughn's going to try the 3, and her response is off the mark. Ramage with the board.
And Vaughn was open there early in that possession. When you bring the trap, when you bring those double teams, it's just a matter of humanity. Someone's got to be open. Didn't quite get to the open Vaughn in time.
Pass goes down low, and now back out. Ramage's 3 is off. Terry with the board, and 1. What a start for the Redbirds.
Yeah, there's Terry going to work down low, and Terry, a great find for this Metamora team and proving why she's going on to play at the Division II level, Lewis College. She's going to be a flyer next year. And watch for her all afternoon long. She'll be, force on defense, force on offense, gets the free throw, and when you can get to the free throw line and hit them, that's big.
Metamora with the early 5-point lead. As Wilson works on breaking the press, she needs to hurry. She gets there across the timeline. And a turnover. If you're Washington, you don't want to do that. Lalamandir to the rack, rolls off the rim, and the rebound is tipped out off of Washington, so it will stay right here. But Joey, what's Washington got to do to stop this momentum? Because it's been all Redbirds early.
Yeah, Metamora has come out of the gate strong. I would expect Washington to call a timeout sooner rather than later.
Kayla Pasha off the glass for 2.
Yeah, and we'll see how this possession goes, but you can see Metamora is bringing the pressure, and Washington just looks a little flustered, trying to go to Scrivener there, a football pass, and oftentimes those won't be successful.
Joey, as we were mentioning before the game, there's no clear answer on defense against this Metamora team because all the points have been scored by 3 different players early on. Ramage, the one-handed pass cross court. Tyra passed up the three. Now she's going to take it. Ramage there for the offensive board. It's still loose, and we will get a jump ball.
Yeah, and it's defense keying offense right now for Metamora. Washington, if you look at their defense, they are not applying nearly the pressure that Metamora is. You know, Metamora, because of that, is getting some open looks, and they're converting on that. They've gotten to the line just a little bit with Terry. And just keep an eye on this pressure throughout this possession.
McGinnis into the ball game now for Washington. She gets a rude welcome. Here's Terry, bounce pass down low. Pace's layup is off, and this time the rebound will go the other way, so Washington gets a break. Joey, if you're the Panthers, who do you go to now?
Well, I think you've got to go. It depends on the kind of look you want. I'd probably go to Georgia Duncan, your proven scorer, you know, especially with McDougal out, maybe get her to spark something. I don't think at this point, you know, if you've got an open three with a player like Vaughn or Scrivener, I'm probably going there. But I just want a good open look.
Scrivener thought about the three. Vaughn works it to the right wing, and McGinnis. Now it's Wilson, and she's going to slow it down. This is one thing that we haven't seen from the Panthers, Joey, taking their time.
Yeah, and Metamora is going to let them do that. You know, they're not trying to trap. They're not really pressing here. They're giving Washington a little bit of leeway, but even still, they get the steal.
Lalumandir to the right block and in. Metamora with a 9-0 run to start the game, and there's the timeout from Kim Barth.
Again, a good timeout from Kim Barth. We'll see if she wants a full or 30. They're going to take a 30, and I like this breather. You know, just take a little bit here to get your bearings. It is a rivalry game. It is, you know, one of the bigger games of the year, and you're down a player for Washington with Claire McDougal. Not just down a player, but down a big part of the lineup. So I like the timeout. Just relax a little bit, and they've got to come up with a solution to Metamora's defense. I mean, the Redbirds' defense has smothered them all afternoon long. The first 3 minutes or so, it's been all Redbirds.
It has been a phenomenal press, Joey, and a lot of the press isn't put into place just to get steals. It's put into place to rush the opposing offense. And Washington has looked rushed on every possession.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Larry. You're not always going to get a steal, but a lot of times you'll get a bad pass or force a bad shot. So Washington, they've got to look for the open player.
Now they look a little more calm and collected out of the timeout. Wilson to the right wing, McGinnis. Teardropper from the baseline was a good look, but it's off.
That was a great look from McGinnis.
Lalumandir going to work on McGinnis. Ramage, you see the right knee brace. She got banged up in the first game against Pekin. We were there for that. Good to see her on the floor today. Grace Tyra thought about the three. It's worked inside instead. The three on the way from Lalumandir. Offensive putback is off.
Yeah, with Metamora running the tempo, Washington has got to keep them off the offensive glass. Got lucky there.
Georgia Duncan's going to try the three. Almost got it.
Tell you what, though, Washington has gotten some good looks, Larry, last couple of times down the floor. They're not falling now, but you've got to stay the course, pardon me, and keep firing.
Grace Tyra, open in the corner. Short. Rebound loose. And a loose ball foul is going to be called on Metamora, so Washington will keep the basketball. I think it's about time for our mask timeout. Officials have not signaled for it yet. Maybe we won't get one. We will see. We'll soon find out, I guess. We get all the substitutions, and now the official signals for our masked timeout. Metamora with a 9-0 run early. We'll be right back from Washington after a quick word from Uftring.
The all-new 2021 Nissan Rogue is now at Uftring Nissan with available all-wheel drive combined with 5 specialized drive modes, advanced technology including up to 3 digital displays, and the most standard safety technologies in its class at Uftring Nissan in Peoria.
Today's coverage is brought to you by Uftring Chevrolet in Washington. When you're shopping for a new Chevy in Central Illinois, visit the heart of Chevy country for selection, savings, and more for your trade. UfteringChevy.com. And by Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in North Pekin. From Wranglers and Grand Cherokees to Rams and family vans, you'll always get a better bottom dollar at Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, UfteringPekin.com. And by Jake Weston State Farm in Washington. For all your insurance needs, call 309-444-4441. It's Jake from State Farm. Washington basketball out of the media timeout. or mask timeout. And Metamora immediately forces a turnover. Ramage, the runner, she's fouled.
Yeah, she's fired up after that. She'll get to the line. Second and third. No, they're going to call that on the floor, pardon me. Looks, yeah, a little confusion. They will call it on the shot. She will go to the line. Second and third free throws that we will have seen today. And the first from Ramage.
Ramage can draw those fouls pretty well. Shoots the left-handed free throw. And Metamora is up by double figures already.
Yeah, quick 10-0 run for the Redbirds. Not the start I was expecting.
No. Kimler checks in for Jones, who heads to the bench. And Ramage knocks down the second.
I do think Washington, though, is just a shot away. They've got to see one go through and then put some defensive stops together. Their defense has not looked all that bad, all things considered. They've made some stops.
It's all about the mental game, Joey, and Washington certainly, I'm sure, is struggling with that a little bit right now. Wilson shouts some directions to her teammates, and they'll run a set. McGinnis to Vaughn, back to McGinnis. Wilson looking inside, instead into the corner for Vaughn. Her three is off the attachment. Duncan with the offensive hustle, though.
Metamora settling into a 2-3 look here.
Foul's going to be on the floor on the Redbirds. That one is going to go on Lalamandir. 5'5" junior guard picks up her first foul. Duncan triggers it in. Duncan has been quiet, just like the entire Panthers offense, needless to say, in an 11-0 ball game.
See if they go back to Vaughn in the corner. Doesn't look like they will yet anyways. See how the offense moves.
Duncan in the corner, looking inside the post, but Redbirds have it on lockdown. Wilson, bounce pass nearly tipped away from McGinnis. Three on the way from McGinnis. It's off. Joey, they're all close, but none of them have fallen.
Yeah, and pay attention to how many passes Metamora is forcing Washington to make. Washington just can't find anything open. It was McGinnis who finally decided in that possession with the shot. It was not a bad look, but I don't think it was the one the Panthers wanted.
Alyssa Russell looks inside, gets it up top to Brooklyn Marshall, and now to Ramage. Lalamandir will slow it down and look to the sideline for a call from Brianna Morrow. Redbirds head coach has done a phenomenal job this year. Marshall inside, her hook shot rolls in. 13-0 run to start the game for the Redbirds.
Yeah, it's easy to look down bottom of your screen and see what the run has been.
Usually our stats aren't that detailed, but this one's easy.
Yeah, and again, I think it just goes back to Washington needs to see one go in. Allie Scribner's going to come back in for Madeline McGinnis. McGinnis coming out. She scored 10 points against Canton on Tuesday, 6 on Thursday, so she'll be a big part of the lineup moving forward.
Duncan gets the baseline, kicks out for Vaughn. Her three doesn't get anything. Joey, I was surprised to see Duncan not take that shot.
Yeah, but she wound up with an open Vaughn. I like the look. I like how Washington capped that possession. And it goes back to the mental game. That was a wide open look for Vaughn. Vaughn, a great shooter. She's taken a lot of shots thus far. Just a little bit off here in the early going. Washington's got to keep firing.
Ramage going to work on Wilson. Reverse to the left wing to Lalamandir. Great look inside, and an easy two for Kayla Pesha.
And there's Pesha stepping up. I tell you though, Larry, watching this early part of the game, 15-0 run now for Metamora, I don't think Metamora has done anything that Washington can't do. Go back to the third quarter against Canton on Thursday night. They held Canton scoreless, and they went on a nice little run. They are so close.
So many of those shots, Joey, have gone halfway down and out, and Metamora adds two more. There's Marshall, and it's 17-0. Ball loose, and Washington turns it over. Lalamandir was out in front with it, but she was fouled. Joey, I think everybody in this gym is a little surprised.
We certainly are, and I've talked a lot about Washington, but Metamora, as the kids might say, they're just vibing right now. They look good. They've settled into a nice rhythm. Every time they go up the floor, it's a confident, poised offensive attack. They're finding the open player. The defenses continue to look good. A great start for Metamora.
Leah Yanko in the ball game for the Redbirds. Ramage swarmed at the free throw line. Back out to Yanko. Redbirds can hold for the rest of the quarter if they want, but there's no need. Another 2 for Kate Ramage, and she's got 6.
And there might have even been a little contact on that look. Not blasting the no call by any means, but it looked like she finished with a little interference and a Washington travel. Larry, Metamora could go up by as many as 22 here to cap the quarter. An unreal first quarter.
Both these teams tied for 3rd place in the Mid-Illini Conference with a 7-3 conference record. So if that tells you anything, it's that these teams are relatively evenly matched. Open in the corner, Russell passed it up. It's Lala Mandir, doesn't hit anything, and that's how the first quarter ends. Washington held scoreless. The Redbirds by 19.
Yeah, and what a start for Metamora. I mean, Metamora, such a talented roster, such a deep roster, but I don't think you were expecting that. I certainly wasn't. And we'll get into what Washington might do here in the second quarter in just a second, but they've got to find an answer quick before this one does get insurmountable.
That's right, Joey, and we take this break to remind you that today's broadcast is brought to you by Uftring Chevrolet in Washington. When you're shopping for a new Chevy in Central Illinois, visit the heart of Chevy country for selection, savings, and more for your trade, UfteringChevy.com. And by Uftring Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram in North Pekin. From Wranglers and Grand Cherokees to Rams and family vans, you'll always get a better bottom dollar at Uftring Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, UfteringPekin.com. And by Jake Weston State Farm in Washington. For all your insurance needs, call 309-444-4441. It's Jake from State Farm. Tell him Clutch Sports Media sent you.
Jake Weston, we've been happy to have him aboard. Last couple of Washington games we've done. Easy number to remember. You see it bottom right of your screen. 309, bunch of 4s, last number's 1. And Uftring joining us. Continue to do that moving forward. I bought my car at Uftring Nissan. So nothing but good things to say about them.
Yes, of course. Metamora looking to build even more momentum than they already have. I don't know if they can have any more momentum than they already have. Shutting down rival Washington in the first quarter. Alana Terry making the offensive rebound look easy, and how'd that shot go in? I don't know who scored there, but it got tipped in, and they're going to credit the points to Grace Tyra.
Well, on the bottom of your screen looks like 79 years into the... Yes, that would be 2100, right? Yes, it wouldn't go right to 3000.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Oh, Joey. And
79 years into the future, and they continue to look strong. I mean, we'll see if they keep attacking here. See if they, I think Lala Mandir took that 3 last time down. We'll see if they don't keep going towards that 3.
Washington forces a turnover. It's Duncan in transition. We'll see if they can finally capitalize. Duncan from 15. She got it. And Washington, at long last, is on the board.
So if you're Washington here, Larry, you've got to build on that. You saw one go in. You've got that. Now you've got to start making stops and scores. You're not going to get back into this one with 1 possession.
3 on the way is off from Russell. But the Redbirds will get another shot. Substitutions for Washington. Vaughn and Kimmler check in.
And if I'm Washington right now, I want Metamora to keep taking 3s. I want to force them to the perimeter. And we'll have a
off-the-ball foul.
Foul before the inbound there. But I want them to keep taking those 3s, those lower percentage shots. Get them away from the basket because they've had a lot of success down low. I'm trying to force them a little bit out of their comfort zone right now. And some of those 3s will go in. They've got some very talented perimeter shooters, but it's a volume game. I think you've got to look at the big picture here.
Here's Vaughn. She goes to the left block and lays it up and in. Washington with 2 straight buckets. Finally some life on the offensive end. Now can they get another stop on the defensive end? Ramage to Lala Mandir. And now it's Terry. And Ramage will dial it up from deep. Almost got the bank to go. But the board goes to Vaughn. McGinnis for three. She got it. And the Panthers are alive with a 7-0 run. Looks like a football game. Pass tipped away. Washington nearly forces the turnover, but the Redbirds are able to settle it down. Great ball movement by the Redbirds as Terry drives to the bucket for two.
That's a big answer from Metamora as Washington starts to build some momentum. And you can see Washington starting to ump the tempo a little bit here.
Kimler, good look from the paint, didn't go. Lalamandir takes it coast to coast.
And two big responses now for Metamora, but you know Washington has the run in them. You know, I know that they have the ability to overcome this deficit, and I go back to, of course, Canton, not quite on the level of Metamora this year, but you look at the second half they posted on Tuesday.
Yes.
They got hot. They held the Little Giants scoreless through the third, and pretty well into the fourth. Canton didn't have much going offensively.
McGinnis from deep. Couldn't get that one to go. Almost got her own board, but it rolls into the hands of Pesha. Pesha ahead. Terry wanted the three, passes it up. Lalamandir will dribble backwards. Redbirds can really take as much time as they want. All the momentum in this one, despite a 7-0 Washington run, which finally got them on the board. Redbirds scoring a few buckets after that run. Ramage wide open. Can't take advantage. Offensive board, high off the glass, no good, and the board goes to Duncan.
Big rebound for Duncan, and you saw Metamora taking as much time as they wanted. Pesha passed up what would have been, I think, a pretty open layup a little bit earlier in that possession. So they're starting to slow it down as Washington wants to try and speed it up.
Duncan inside the arc and back out. Now it's McGinnis, the 5'8" sophomore guard. Looked at the wrong spot in my roster there, and Scrivener's three hits nothing but nylon, but not through the hoop. Ramage dribbling with her head up, finds the open Pesha, and she is fouled. And that foul is going to go on McGinnis. That should take us, or we already had our second quarter mass time. No, we have.
Nope,
here it is. The second quarter going by in a hurry. In case you're just joining us, Metamora ripped off a 21-0 run in the first quarter, which put them out in front. We take this break to remind you that today's broadcast is brought to you by Uftring Chevrolet in Washington. When you're shopping for a new Chevy in Central Illinois, visit the heart of Chevy country for selection, savings, and more for your trade. UfteringChevy.com. And by Uftring Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram in North Pekin. From Wranglers and Grand Cherokees to Rams and family vans, you'll always get a better bottom dollar at Uftring Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram. UfteringPekin.com. And by Jake Weston State Farm in Washington. Call 309-444-4441 for all your insurance needs. It's Jake from State Farm. Thanks for joining us on this Saturday afternoon on Clutch Sports Media. It's been all Redbirds, but Washington's starting to show a little bit of life in this second quarter, Joey, right?
All Redbirds except for about a minute 30 span, a little bit earlier in this quarter. Washington showed those signs of life, and I think if the Panthers can get it to about 13 points before halftime, first free throw off the mark from Pesha, they'll be in okay shape. We've seen comebacks posted against Metamora before. Dunlap was down about 10, 11-ish points. I'd have to go back and see. You know, memory fails me now, but they were down about 10 going into the locker room at halftime, came back and won it. Took them a couple overtimes to do that, of course, but this Metamora team, not invincible.
They have lost 3 games in conference, all pretty close ones. They force a Washington turnover here. Marshall's with it. Underhanded pass to Lalamandir. And Ramage, the baseline J. Little too strong. Duncan with the strong board. Outlet pass ahead to McGinnis. The open jumper. Able to rattle in.
And now we get into a stretch of possessions where I would expect both teams to trade buckets. You know, Washington will go down and score. I think Metamora will keep scoring here to close out the second half. So it's a volume game. You know, Washington just has to be efficient. They've got to end every possession with the shot, control what they can control, and see if they can make it happen.
Lalamandir with it on the Panther head at half court.
But Metamora has just, as I'll go back to that, they've played a phenomenal first half. They're not making unforced errors. These passes that are crisp, they're finding the open players. Tyra now.
Lalamandir slows it down, signals a play. Ramage in the high post. Lalamandir thought about the open three, and she'll float it in and out. Rebound tipped around, and it will stay with the Redbirds. Joey, that's one trend I've picked up on today. So many offensive rebounds for Metamora.
That's a great point. That's exactly what I was going to bring up. Washington, they've got to control the offensive glass a little better.
Ramage with a wide open look, doesn't get the shooter's touch.
And Duncan got that rebound, but it was close. Metamora is making it very tough on them.
McGinnis mid-range is off. Ramage takes it to the hoop once again, halfway down and out. Good hustle from Vaughn to get it out to Duncan.
Metamora really making the Panthers hustle for anything on the glass. Washington will slow it down a little bit here. Metamora starting to bring that pace back up, and we saw it with what we talked about at the top of the show there, that last possession for Metamora. Ramage, fast break threat. Don't let her get into transition. She'll burn you.
And a shooting foul as Kimler goes to the stripe. It's another thing that we haven't seen much of, Joey, is Washington at the free throw line. You talked about how if you're Washington, you want to keep making Metamora shoot the threes, but Washington has not been able to get to the rack themselves. Just a lot of threes, a lot of mid-range jumpers, and I think that's kind of faulted them because we know shooting the three really usually is not their game.
No, it's not. Metamora has executed this to perfection. And to our viewers, go back at halftime, rewind our broadcast, go back, late first quarter, early second quarter. Look at how many passes Metamora was forcing Washington to make. They had to pass it 7, 8, 9 times a possession, it seemed, and even then, they still weren't finding those open looks. It wasn't quite clicking.
Kimler's second free throw is her first point of the matchup. Duncan came flying in trying to get the steal, but couldn't quite. Joey, you mentioned that 15-point mark. Washington down by 16 here. Do you think they go aggressive on the defensive end trying to pick up a steal?
I would. I think that would be an advantageous strategy. It's been a pretty clean game in the foul column. It's what they're going to do there. But
Youngquist swings it around the world. The high arcing three is off from Russell, and another offensive board by Youngquist.
I think that's a shot you want if you're Washington, though. Some of them will go in, but it's a lower percentage look.
Terry from 15. Her jumper is off, and now the Panthers have an opportunity. McGinnis in transition. Right back to her.
It's what we talked about a moment ago. If you can cut it to that kind of 14, 13-point mark, I think you're okay.
Feel like you need a bucket here, especially with the length that this possession is going. Kimler's jumper is off. Great hustle from Vaughn. Wilson saves it, but it's into the hands of Ramage.
The hustle's there. You won't always connect on that, but great effort. I do think Metamora will slow it down, look for the last shot.
Joey, in my opinion, as they should. Great first half, and if they end it with a bucket, that's a big dagger at the half for the Panthers, and Ramage is fouled on her 14-foot attempt that barely left her hands.
Yeah, and that's not, of course, we'll never know if that shot would have gone in or not. It was kind of an off-balance look from the free throw line. She'll stay home and shoot two, but not a horrible foul if she misses one.
Ramage's first free throw gets her to 7 points on the afternoon. Another well-balanced attack for the Redbirds. Scoring really coming from everywhere.
It really is, and this is a great free throw shooter and Ramage at the line.
Ramage's second free throw is down, Joey, and you can just tell with the shooter's touch. Duncan into McGinnis, 3 seconds, they've got to hurry. Duncan's gonna have to heave it from well beyond half court. Look to be on line, but too short. And the Panthers are short by 18 at the half after Metamora opened the game with a 21-0 run, including holding the Panthers scoreless for the entire first quarter.
Yeah, great first half for Metamora. You know, it's easy to say, but especially that first quarter opened the game up on a big run, and Washington did a couple things in that third quarter that I think favored them, and they started looking a little better. They kind of found their rhythm and got into it a little bit, but Metamora kept scoring. It's going to be hard for Washington to keep this Metamora team off the attack in the second half. You know, a lot of times when we talk about these comebacks, it's what does Washington have to do well, but it's kind of what does Metamora have to stop doing so well. They've been very efficient. The passes have been crisp. They've ended almost every possession, if not every possession, with a shot. I can't remember off the top of my head any travels or anything like that for Metamora. Might have had one or two, but still very clean game. They haven't turned the ball over a lot. They're shooting pretty efficiently. They look good down low. The three-pointers I don't think have been falling at some astronomical rate, but they've stepped outside beyond the paint and scored from there too. A great first half for Metamora. What can you say?
Yeah, Joey, you know, they really did it all, and offensive rebounding, defensive rebounding, all the fundamentals are there. And that's not to say that Washington has necessarily played sloppy either. A number of turnovers for them, but then they found their footing, but they just have not been able to get the points to go with it.
No, they haven't. And, you know, they look good in the first 4 minutes or so of the game. Washington looked good. You know, the defense wasn't bad. They forced a couple misses. They looked good. But then as the points started to pile up, the offense couldn't get going, and it went back to Metamora's defense. They played so well. The zone was good. They forced Washington to make a lot of passes, didn't let them get a lot of open looks, and that really favored them, and that really keyed them in the first half.
Before we step aside for a halftime break, we want to remind you that later today we will head to Richwoods. I say later today, but not that much later. We're
T-minus 2 hours.
Yeah, we're going to hightail it out of here and head into town in Peoria as Champaign Centennial pays a visit to the Knights in Big 12 boys action. Should be a good one, Joey. Centennial, always a great program, and Richwoods coming off a frustrating 1-point loss to Manual last night.
I was texting back and forth with Colin Likas at the News Gazette this morning, and it's a weird Big 12 this year. You've got teams beating up on each other. Peoria High School just beat Peoria Notre Dame, handed in their first loss of the season last night. If you were with us on ClutchSportsIL.com for that one, you saw a good one. Peoria beat Peoria Notre Dame, who beat Richwoods and Manual by about 30 points apiece. And then, Richwoods and Manual get together and play a good one. And Danville beat Peoria, who beat Notre Dame. And, Notre Dame plays Urbana today. And that previously was Notre Dame's last loss. It had been over 400 days. So it's a crazy Big 12. Tim Lavin runs a great program at Centennial. Well over 300 wins now, a state title in 2009, fourth in the state the next year, 5 regionals. So it's a good Chargers program. It's a historically good Richwoods program. William Smith has a good thing going there. We're going to see some guys, Ike Donnelly, and a lot of fun players on that team, a very talented roster. Don't flip your browser after this one, because by the time this one ends, not going to be very much longer before that game starts.
Yeah, that'll be fun for us, but we'll worry about that later. And for now, we'll step aside for a quick halftime break. Thanks for joining us on ClutchSportsIL.com today for a great rivalry between Metamora and Washington. It's been all Redbirds in the first half. We'll be right back with the second half and more. Welcome back inside Torrey Gymnasium in Washington, and we take this break at halftime to remind you that today's broadcast is brought to you by Uftring Chevrolet in Washington. When you're shopping for a new Chevy in Central Illinois, visit the heart of Chevy country for selection, savings, and more for your trade. UfteringChevy.com. And by Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in North Pekin. From Wranglers and Grand Cherokees to Rams and family vans, you'll always get a better bottom dollar at Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. UfteringPekin.com. And by Jake Weston State Farm in Washington. Call 309-444-4441 for all your insurance needs. It's Jake from State Farm. We're back underway in the second half. In case you're just joining us on Clutch Sports Media, it was all Redbirds in the first half. They started the game with a remarkable 21-0 run. Washington found its stride in the second quarter a little bit, but no less. They really just have not been able to creep into this game. Larry Larson and Joey Wright in with you. And Joey, the Panthers just, we talked about it before the break. Yeah, they started to play better in the second quarter, but it's going to take more than just trading buckets.
I think it will. You know, it's the same point I made a moment ago. You got to talk about what does Washington have to do a little better, but it's what does Metamora have to stop doing, and they were lights out in a lot of aspects in that first half. So Washington, they've just got to take it possession by possession, in with shots. You know, don't shoot yourself in the foot with careless turnovers, things like that. Largely, I don't think they did that in the first half. It was just good defense from Metamora.
Great ball movement as Allie Scrivener drops it in from the baseline. So way to start, Joey.
Exactly.
So here's Lalamandir, now to Ramage. And they play catch. To the left wing to Tyra. It's Kayla Pasha through contact, short. Lana Terry is there to put it back in.
Yeah, and keeping Terry off the boards is going to be a big thing for Washington. Going to play college ball at Lewis next year, Division II. And Metamora, throughout the first half, that was probably the biggest thing they did was controlled the boards, especially on the offensive glass. They were right there for a lot of offensive rebounds.
Nothing really demoralizes a team more than giving up second chance buckets. It's just so frustrating.
It certainly is. And I imagine that was a big point in the locker room for Washington head coach Kim Barth at halftime.
Kayla Pasha is fouled. And Joey, on the flip side of that coin, if you're Brianna Morrow and Metamora, what's the message in that locker room?
I think it's just keep rolling and, you know, keep on the glass is the big thing. You know, it's two sides of the same coin. That really set up a lot of opportunities for them, not just offensively but defensively. They did not allow a lot of second chance points for Washington. First free throw falls, second meets the same fate. Kayla Pasha. What is she up to now, Larry? I told you she was going to have kind of a quiet game.
She's got 7, it looks like, after I craned my neck to see the scoreboard.
Talk a lot about Ramage, but Kayla Pasha, she's going to finish with 12 to 14 points.
Georgia Duncan at the stripe. Leah Jones, the tray. Lalamandir with the rebound, weaving in and out of traffic. Great pass, and 2 for Kayla Pasha. She's got 9.
Now up to 9.
Not so quiet anymore. Washington needs to get it past half court, and they do. Jones to Vaughn. Vaughn to Scrivener, and a block is called. I think that one's going to be on Alana Terry. It's on the floor, and it is on Terry, her first. Not a lot of fouls on this game on either team so far.
And quietly, the Metamora lead, the largest it's been all afternoon, started at 21-0 before Washington went on a little run.
Lucy Wilson's 3 is off. Pasha pulls down the board, making her presence known in the second half. Goes coast to coast, too strong. Offensive board to Tyra. Great ball movement. Lalamandir passes up the open 3. Now they'll slow it down. And Joey, if you're the Redbirds, there's really no need to push it in transition or rush any of your possessions.
It really isn't. If you just got to stay the course. Keep playing at the pace you've been playing, and they have controlled the pace. Don't put it on cruise control, you know, keep going, but keep going in that rhythm you've established.
Scrivener's long two is down. Her foot was on the line. Washington down by 20. Tyra goes inside to Pasha. The paint was clogged up.
I think Washington might have one run left in them, but they've got to go quick. Down 20. I think it's too early to start talking about the clock, but with no shot clock, sooner rather than later, it's going to start working against you.
McGinnis passed up the three. Now Duncan will take it as it glances off the rim. Go quick, but don't hurry, as our Evan Johnson would say. Alana Terry goes to the bucket, and a loose ball foul. That foul's going to go on Terry. On the rebound, I think, or it's going to be on Washington, so it will stay here. Never mind, I was right the first time.
First gut, right? First instinct.
Yes, indeed, and that will take us to our mask timeout. Washington trying to climb back into it, still down by 20 here in the third quarter. We'll step aside for a quick word from Uftring.
Your best used car value is a certified Nissan at Uftring Nissan. Every certified Nissan comes with a 100,000-mile warranty, a 167-point inspection, and 1 year of complimentary maintenance. And this month, get up to a $750 rebate at Uftring Nissan in Peoria.
Mid-Illini girls basketball on Clutch Sports Media is brought to you by Uftring Chevrolet in Washington. When you're shopping for a new Chevy in Central Illinois, visit the heart of Chevy country for selections, savings, and more for your trade. UfteringChevy.com. And by Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in North Pekin. From Wranglers and Grand Cherokees to Rams and family vans, you'll always get a better bottom dollar at Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. UfteringPekin.com. And by Jake Weston State Farm in Washington. Call 309-444-4441 for all your insurance needs. It's Jake from State Farm. Thanks for joining us this afternoon on Clutch Sports Media. A classic rivalry between Metamora and Washington, but Joey, frankly, it has not been a classic game, especially for the Panthers.
Hey, that just means the fourth quarter is going to be a classic as Washington gets back into it, right? It could be.
It could be.
It has, it's been not a dull first 2.5 quarters, but not a ton of excitement if you're Washington. But hey, maybe you're just setting yourself up for a great final 12 minutes.
Georgia Duncan stares into the Metamora zone defense. It's been a 2-3 look all day, and they've ran the trap full court defense for most of it, and it's thrown Washington off. Duncan, the contested jumper from 14, offensive board for McGinnis. Lucia Wilson looking for Duncan. That was a difficult pass, and it was tipped away by the Redbirds.
Metamora is going to bring in a substitution. That'll be Leah Yanko. She's back in. If you're Washington, you've got to get going, and easy to say, but if you can find a basket here, then you get a stop on defense. You start building them together, but we're running out of time to say that with a 20-point lead and a turnover. Here's Metamora.
Lala Mandir with the swipe. Passes up, trying for the score. Leah Yanko was open. The Redbirds will be patient. We'll probably see this the rest of the game, Joey. Redbirds going away from the transition offense and settling into more of a half-court set.
I think so, and a little surprised that Yanko didn't take that shot initially in the possession. And now they'll drop one in.
Russell.
Yeah, credit Russell with that one. They're going to slow it down. They'll take some open looks, as Russell proved there. But, they're in no hurry, and nor should they be.
Scrivener's three ball is off. Nothing falling from deep for Washington. If I'm not mistaken, they've only made one. Russell's deep ball is off, but Marshall cleans it up.
And if you're, I say a lot of these shots have been close for Washington. Really, it's frustrating, but really ultimately it doesn't mean anything. A make is a make, a miss is a miss. No points for being close, but they've gotten good looks, I think is the point there. And they just haven't fallen. Just a bit of a cold day from the field.
Scrivener dials that one up, and
it's right on target.
Close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades.
That's right.
And Lucy Wilson comes out with a turnover, but they give it right back. It's kind of been the epitome of Washington's ball game, Joey. Just squandered opportunities when they get them, but in all reality, it's just been so dominant by Metamora. The door has never really been open for the Panthers, with the exception of the first few possessions of the game when Metamora set the tone for this one.
No, it hasn't. And now Metamora, you can see they're going to start working some players in Ramage and Lalamandir come out. But already looking ahead to Tuesday, we'll be here for the boys game. But when these two teams rematch in Metamora on Tuesday night, I think it's going to be closer than this. And again, it's been a crazy year. All that, 10 minutes to play, anything could happen, the old spiel. But, Tuesday's game will be closer. Tuesday, I think Washington, they've been in the right places a lot of times. They've gotten a lot of good looks. Metamora has played very well, and they really controlled the first half, first quarter especially. But since then, Washington settled in, and Metamora using that early advantage to continue its reign of dominance here, and they maintain the 24-point lead.
Metamora works it around as Joey Wright puts forth the half-hearted effort to keep our viewers tuned in. Monetary, the bounce pass to Marshall. Back out. And a turnover falls back into the hands of the Redbirds, and Leah Jones comes out with it. And Kim Barth takes a 30-second timeout. But Joey, I cannot wait for that boys game on Tuesday. We were here, I don't know if we were here or at Metamora. I think we were at Metamora for the Washington Metamora boys game last year. And it was jam-packed, capacity crowd, different world then obviously, but we were sitting there amongst the fans, and boy was that intense. Those are the types of atmospheres you'd miss, and I'm sure that we'd have two atmospheres like that, one here in Washington and of course one up the road in Metamora for that boys game going on right now, and I'll be interested to see a score update from that one.
Yeah, we'll see if we can track one down here in just a little bit. And yeah, we'll be here on Tuesday. Join us for that one. That'll be the boys game. The girls game in Metamora also going to be a good one. And yeah, I go back to that boys game in Metamora last season. That was the game where Washington held the ball for about the last 3 minutes of the second half. A crazy sequence.
Brings up the relentless debate of should there be a shot clock in high school basketball, and many would say yes. And
as would I.
Well, logistically, I think my answer would be yes as well. The three is off from Jones. Rebound goes to the Redbirds, and no shot clock. They can hold for the rest of the quarter, but I'm not entirely sure they will.
I believe the IHSA is implementing one soon. It should be the next couple of seasons.
Well, I think they've considered it. They've certainly sent out polls. The three is too strong from Youngquist, and the Panthers come out with it. Here's Vaughn, a finger roll off the glass and in. Washington still down by 22. Deficit has stayed there for pretty much the whole third quarter. 5 seconds for the Redbirds. Yanko being unselfish. The deep three is off from Russell. And the Redbirds hang on to that 22-point advantage going into the fourth. We take this quarter break to remind you that today's broadcast is brought to you by Uftring Chevy in Washington. When you're shopping for a new Chevy in Central Illinois, visit the heart of Chevy country for selection, savings, and more for your trade. UfteringChevy.com. And by Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in North Pekin. From Wranglers and Grand Cherokees to Rams and family vans, you'll always get a better bottom dollar at Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. UfteringPekin.com. And by Jake from State Farm. It's Jake Weston in Washington. Call 309-444-4441 for all your insurance needs. Call Jake Weston in Washington. Heading to the fourth quarter in Washington, and we want to also take this opportunity to remind you that after this one ends, we're headed to Richwoods for a boys Big 12 battle between Champaign Centennial and Peoria Richwoods. Should be a good one. Two great programs in that conference. Larry Larson and Joey Wright in with you alongside Jonathan Michael, working our camera, doing a phenomenal job as always.
Matt Harrington is on this graphic. I did that deliberately because we don't have one with just John's name on it made up. But Matt is going to be with us at Richwood later today, along with John Camosa. So excited to see those guys.
Just a three-man team here this early afternoon.
Matt was dynamite last night in Peoria, as was John Michael. Had a little bit of technical adversity that we worked through.
Technical adversity, to put it lightly. That's always a great term. Ramage back in the game. Back up top to Lalumandir. And Joey, looking at the history between these two teams, recently it's really been dominated by Washington. So I think that the Redbirds are gonna, for a lack of a better term, bask in the glory of this one. I think they're certainly happy with the big victory they're gonna come out with.
I think they are too, and we'll see how Washington attacks this next 6:55. But all signs would point to a good Metamora win today, and they've played well. I mean, they've earned this score right now, and they'll continue on their way to earning the victory. There's been a lot of basking in the glory in the Mid-Illini Conference this season, with Pekin beating Morton and then Washington beating Morton a little bit later on. Metamora did not beat Morton. I know that was a game that a lot of Redbirds and Redbirds fans had circled on the calendars. Morton swept them in Metamora and Morton. And so I think that maybe put a little bit of chip on their, or put a chip on their shoulder, I should say, moving forward. Couldn't quite get past and get our scoreboard squared away here, but they couldn't quite get past the Potters. A long losing streak continues. And I think that's motivated them the rest of the way through here, and we see that in front of us this afternoon.
Entering this matchup, Washington had won each of, I want to say, I got counted up the game notes here from Alex Staub, but as you see the layup there from Kayla Pasha. Pasha's up to double figures, 11 points now. But Washington has dominated this one, winning 6 of the last 7 matchups, including a 14-point victory last year, and Metamora winning the matchup on February 5th, 2019. So 2 seasons ago. But other than that, the Panthers have been dominant, so certainly a reversal of the trend today. Duncan knocks in the first free throw, and Panthers' leading scorer only has 3 points, Joey, and I think that's telling of today's ball game.
Yeah, they have not been able to spread the ball around. Well, they've had to spread the ball around efficiently, I should say, although they have not been allowed to be that efficient. Metamora's defense came out of the gate strong in the first quarter, and they did not let up.
Joey, at halftime, we were talking about Metamora's dominant performance off the air, and I kind of drew a comparison to how Morton played those last few years. Obviously, when they had that dominant Mid-Illini Conference winning streak, Metamora really looked like Morton. As Alana Terry knocks in the easy 2 as the Redbirds broke the press, and now they throw their own press at Washington.
The Morton program, we describe it as a machine. I mean, any given year, they've got players who can come in and score. I mean, anyone can step up on any given night. And although they are a little down this year with losses to Washington and Pekin, they have still stepped up, and they've had a very good year. When Morton being down is a 6-2 conference record or a 7-2 conference record, you'll take that.
In second place.
Yeah, that's a pretty good down year, I would say.
Yeah, I'd take that. Metamora gets the basketball back.
And Metamora is starting to build that. I mean, this whole roster up and down, it's such a deep roster, such a talented roster. Ramage, Terry, Pasha, of course, who has quietly had a very good afternoon.
Terry will go to the stripe here, and looking towards next year, as so many teams have started to do. For Metamora, they've only got 3 seniors on the roster. Grace Tyra, a starter, Alana Terry, a starter, and Leah Yanko, who plays big bench minutes. But other than that, you're bringing a lot of your core back, and the same can be said for Washington, who only loses Allie Scrivener, who goes to the bench right now.
Yep, Scrivener in her second to last game at the Torrey Gym. She'll have one more against East Peoria on March 6th, on Saturday. But I like what I've got back for Metamora, when you look at their top two scorers, Pesha and Ramage coming back next year with big aspirations. It's a program that wants to ascend the Mid-Illini Conference, as does Washington. I certainly like what Washington's got back with Claire McDougall, who we've not seen tonight, and Georgia Duncan. And the loss of Claire McDougall can't be understated. I think Washington would be in a little bit better shape right now if she was on the floor.
That's a point that, we really haven't talked about a whole lot, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons this game is not particularly close. We take this mask time out to remind you that today's broadcast is brought to you by Jake Weston, State Farm in Washington. Call 309-444-4441 for all your insurance needs. It's Jake from State Farm. And by Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in North Pekin. From Wranglers and Grand Cherokees to Rams and family vans, you'll always get a better bottom dollar at Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, UfteringPekin.com. And by Uftring Chevrolet in Washington. When you're shopping for a new Chevy in Central Illinois, visit the heart of Chevy country for selection, savings, and more for your trade. UfteringChevy.com. Thanks for joining us this afternoon on ClutchSportsIL.com. And if you've enjoyed this broadcast, we've got another one coming up for you at approximately 3:30 from Richwoods as the Knights take on Champaign Centennial in a boys Big 12 conference matchup. Georgia Duncan from point blank range is off.
Inside of 90 minutes to tip off at Richwoods High School. You'll have the call with John Camosa. Looking forward to that. Want to credit Colin Likas, the News-Gazette, for helping us out a little with Centennial. Was texting him back and forth this morning, getting a little information on the Chargers, and all signs point to a very good matchup at Richwoods High School. So join us for that. Boys basketball coming at you at 3:30 this afternoon.
Approximately.
So.
Anytime we tweet a start time, I feel bad because games always start late, and go figure, today's the day when we're traveling to another school immediately after this game, and today's game in Washington was the most delayed start that we've had all year.
By a pretty significant margin.
2 is in for Kayla Pesha. Pesha's got 13. Joey, your point in the pregame was right. Pesha, a sneaky good game, and Lala Mandir comes out with a steal. Pesha right back to the rack. That one falls short. Tyra with the board, and the Redbirds slow it down.
Brianna Morrow needs to sub Pesha out right now, because I've been saying all game long between 12 and 14 points. She's at 13 right now. see if she continues to play.
Lala Mandir to the left wing to Tyra. And Terry slips through the defense and makes it look easy. She's got 11 points. So a lot of our pregame points are looking pretty good, Joey. Not to toot our own horns here, but the scoring distribution for the Redbirds has been impeccable. Multiple players in double figures. You got Pesha with 13. Terry with 11. Ramage is also in double figures. She's on the bench.
And Washington has been stifled in the scoring column.
Pretty evident.
Yep, 4 points
Analysis.
for 4 points for just to contrast that point. You've got 4 points from Carly Vaughn, pardon me, and similar figures for others.
3 rattles in and out.
3, yeah.
Joey, like we said, really in the first half, third quarter, they've just been so close. And another 2 for Kayla Pesha. And a timeout, a 30-second timeout taken by Brianna Morrow and Metamora with 2:16 remaining. And you see that reminder? Centennial at Richwoods coming up next on Clutch Sports Media.
And looking ahead, we don't have a graphic made for it, but right back here on Tuesday night, Washington and Metamora, the boys game. As the girls go at it in Metamora, we'll be right here for the boys matchup. That one, as we say, roughly scheduled for a 7 o'clock start, but that can change.
Fingers
so
crossed.
Join us right about that time, and who knows what's going on at Richwoods. Maybe they just decided to start without us. I hope that didn't happen.
Hope not.
Or maybe more likely the JV game, might go a little, long, whatever the case may be there.
McGinnis to the left wing is.
Forgot to hit transition.
Joey Wright at the controls as well as on the color. Oh.
Some things will slip through the cracks.
That happens.
And there.
Leah Jones from deep, just short. And good hustle from Scrivener, laying out for the rebound in a game that's not close. The hustle has been there all day for Washington. And Metamora takes another timeout.
And it's what we've talked about all season long. We'll go back to it here. You get these situations late in the game that isn't particularly close. Metamora is on its way to a 9-3 record, 8-3 in the conference. You still want to go through those situations against live competition, especially, these two teams are going to rematch on Tuesday night, so what better way to practice some things than to do it against the same group of players that you'll see in 3 days' time. So I don't think any of these teams will, or either of these teams, I should say, will throw in the towel these last
few minutes.
Trying to think of how many seconds that is. That would be 105 seconds left.
Good math. Is that why you're pursuing a sports broadcasting career?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I shouldn't be the one throwing stones. Izzy Vandeschraff in the game for the Redbirds. Guarded tightly by McGinnis. Has the ball knocked out of her hands, but gets it to Yanko. I am excited to be back here on Tuesday, Joey. We've been to Washington so many times in the last week, and I think that kind of speaks to Washington's basketball teams, both good at the same time, really. There are a few programs or schools you can say that about in the Mid-Illini Conference. Morton, Metamora, a few good ones. But, we really could have set up a tent in the Washington parking lot and just
this week we've been
stayed over.
We were here on Monday.
Saved some gas.
Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, today. That's 4 days this week, and then on Tuesday. So that's 5 days in a 9-day span.
And with that said, I don't anticipate that we'll be back here during the regular season.
I wouldn't think so. No, I would not think that we would see Washington against East Peoria next week. But it's a testament, too, to Metamora. We just had to pick a because we wanted to do both of these games, both the Washington-Metamora games. It was just pick a location and kind of see what works best. We chose Washington. Could have been in Metamora. We've seen Metamora and been in Metamora probably the second most times of any gym this year. So it's a testament to these two towns, these two fan bases. Neither of them like each other at all. We like them both. Exactly.
Yes. We don't have any favorites. Yanko's three is short. And, of course, a big thank you goes out to Herb Noblock, Jared Hart, ADs at both schools, and of course, all the athletic staff and coaches and players, and for everybody tuning in.
Yeah, we always enjoy talking with Kim Barth, Eric Schermerhorn, Washington's coaches, girls and boys respectively, Brianna Morrow and Danny Greaves, girls and boys coaches for Metamora. Excited to hopefully catch these teams on the gridiron in a couple of weeks, too.
Oh, yeah.
Big things expected. New head coach in town in Metamora, and Washington coming off a playoff year last year. They had a very good campaign.
That's sneaking up on us.
It is. It's right around the corner. We'll catch them both, football and even baseball and softball beyond that. Looking forward to it.
And your final score from Torrey Gym, it's the Redbirds moving to 8-3 in the Mid-Illini Conference with a whopping 50-19 victory. Joey, your final thoughts?
It was a great start for Metamora and a great team effort. They come out and get a big win, and not the score either of us were expecting, 50-19. They looked stout, and it was the 21-0 run, I think, to start the game that it maybe didn't put it away immediately, but it really had, of course, a big impact on how the rest of the game played out. So a great team effort for Metamora. Washington got some good looks. A lot of them just didn't fall. I think they'll clean it up. And when these two teams go at it on Tuesday in Metamora, I would expect a much closer result. Would not be shocked if Washington came out and scored a win in that one. But credit to Metamora. They played a phenomenal game and a well-deserved win and a big rivalry game.
Certainly is. It's always fun to beat a rival, and it's always fun to broadcast a rivalry. That does it from Torrey Gymnasium this early afternoon. Stay with us on ClutchSportsIL.com. We're going to hightail it out of here and get on over to Richwood. So for Jonathan, Michael, and Joey Wright, I am Larry Larson saying so long, and we'll talk to you in a little bit.